So I've been playing Resident Evil Dead Aim. You know, back when I first played and reviewed Resident Evil Survivor, there was one thing I didn't realize. And that's that apparently, it spawned an entire fucking series of its own. Inglorious Nippon! The series is called Biohazard Gun Survivor. And it has a total of 4 games, all of which released outside of Japan under different names. The first one is of course called Resident Evil Survivor. The second one is called Resident Evil Survivor 2, Code Veronica, which was only released in Europe and Japan. The third one is called Dino Stalker, and it's actually a Dino Crisis spin-off. And last but not least, Resident Evil Dead Aim. Now, Resident Evil Survivor is many things. One of these things is a bad game. Bad in a way that it ended up being kind of funny. Well, a lot of people would argue that, and yeah, my review of the game is a bit dated to say the least, but as I kept playing, I just couldn't stop laughing my ass off. There's even some evidence of this in the darkest, most deepest bowels of my YouTube channel. So, in a weird way, I was actually kind of excited to play RE Dead Aim and laugh my ass off once again, and I'm happy to say that it certainly delivered. Now, just like Resident Evil Revelations, the story takes place on a boat. This boat has been hijacked by former Umbrella employee Morpheus D. Duval, and apparently this ship is filled with a bunch of T-virus related shit. So Morpheus has threatened to release the T-virus into the world unless the US and China give him $1 billion. Insert Bruce McGivern, a member of the anti-Umbrella Pursuit Investigation Team, here to save the day. Also, Duval turns into a zombie fish lady for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, as is obviously tradition within the Resident Evil series, the voice acting is really bad. And while I found myself laughing at it for most of the time, I also found it kind of fascinating. Like, how do you even make a script that's this incompetent? I mean, it isn't like Capcom's writers are completely retarded or anything, so my guess it has probably something to do with the localization, which really does make me wonder how the dialogue was in the original Japanese version.
Raccoon City, a Midwestern town in the United States.
It's exactly the same. Also, besides the script being made by a bunch of strategically shaped monkeys, the subtitles seem not to match up to any of the dialogue at all, ever. I mean, fucking look at this shit.
Should have left by now. Somewhere in America there's a kitten stuck in the tree, desperately needing your help.
Capcom, baby! I love you! But please! No. Anyway, just like Resident Evil Survivor, it's an off-rails light gun game. So you still get to walk around in third person and do some exploring and puzzling, but all of the shooting happens in first person. Now, I don't own a light gun, but it works relatively fine with a controller. However, according to the internet, you can also play this game with a USB mouse. And, well, I couldn't get it to work for some reason. I mean, it clearly recognizes the mouse, cause I can shoot with it. It's just the walking and looking around that's the problem here. Besides, even if I could get it to work, I'd still have to do everything else apart from shooting with the controller. So yeah. Anyway, while the game does work with the controller, it's hard to deny that the controls aren't optimal. Thing is, both walking and controlling the camera is done with the left analog stick. But in first person, you need to use the right analog stick to aim. However, you can still walk around while in first person, and you'd want to do that often so you can actually turn around. So while you move the reticle with the right analog stick, you still need to use the left one to look left and right. And to make things even better, walking forward will make you exit first person mode. So quite often I found myself accidentally exiting first person mode whilst trying to look around and aim. Then there's also that thing where both circle and X are used to confirm, and start is used to both open and exit the menu. It's not like that makes the menus confusing and impossible all the time or anything. That said, for all the things the game fucks up, its atmosphere is actually done surprisingly well, and it reminds me a lot of the Resident Evil remake. It's just so extremely dark and tense for a game that's primarily focused on action. And I didn't expect this at all considering how hokey and stupid Resident Evil Survivor was. The survival horror parts really do put the emphasis on horror. And it's nice to play a Resident Evil game that actually tries to be scary for once. That said, it does kind of feel like they just stuck two games together. Cause atmosphere-wise it doesn't feel like a light gun game at all. But even then, it does do the big ship horror thing a lot better than Resi Relations did. And it's not like the entire game only takes place on the ship either. I mean, it obviously wouldn't be a Resident Evil game if you didn't end up in a secret underground research facility somehow. Also, can I just say that the soundtrack is actually pretty fucking good? It's strange, cause parts of it actually sound like they'd be better at home in a Silent Hill game, rather than Resident Evil. It's just so freakishly atmospheric and calm compared to how the gameplay usually is. And it kinda creates this really weird dissonance between the gameplay and what the game is doing horror-wise. Like, on the surface, it's a dumb, poorly made action game, with theatrical performances only rivaled by such masterpieces as Birdemic. But the game's atmosphere and soundtrack actually made it feel like I was playing a good game. And while I may have critiqued the game a lot for its shortcomings, it's actually fairly competent compared to Resident Evil Survivor. If anything, it's kinda like a Resident Evil Lite. All the right parts are there, but everything is just simplified and not quite as polished. And of course, most of the game's faults can easily be forgotten when one finds out about the joys of having a shotgun.